They can break your body, mock your pain, take what you've built and burn it to ash. But there is one thing they can never touch, not unless you let them, not unless you surrender it: your soul. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while carrying grief no emperor should bear. Epictetus taught wisdom from a prison, his body broken by slavery, yet his voice unshaken. These men lived in brutal times, but their peace was untouchable, because they wore a different kind of armor. Not steel, not pride, but something far stronger: self-control, perspective, discipline, inner clarity. The Stoics understood something we often forget: that true strength isn't about overpowering the world, it's about becoming unbreakable within it. This video is a guide not to surviving pain, but to transcending it, not to avoiding life's battles, but to wearing an invisible armor that lets your soul remain intact even when the world wounds your body. If you've ever felt broken, if life has shaken your peace, then what you're about to learn is not just philosophy, it's protection. Because the next time suffering comes, you won't be asking, "Why is this happening to me?" You'll remember instead, "They can hurt my body, but they can't touch my soul." Let's begin. Chapter 1. The external versus the internal. There are two worlds we live in, one that's out there and one that's in here. The first is chaotic. People come and go. Circumstances shift. You lose things you thought were permanent. And pain, it often arrives uninvited. The second is quiet, private, sacred. It's the space behind your thoughts, where your judgments are born, where your choices are made, where your peace lives or dies. The Stoics had a word for this divide. They called it what is up to us and what is not. Your reputation, not up to you. Other people's behavior, not up to you. The economy, the weather, your childhood, not up to you. But your thoughts, your beliefs, your reactions, entirely yours. Epictetus, once a Roman slave, said, "We are disturbed not by events, but by our opinions about them." He was beaten, humiliated, and chained, but he never let his mind be enslaved. That's the first step in building the Stoic armor, recognizing that most of what hurts you isn't the event itself. It's your belief that it shouldn't have happened. It's your insistence that life must obey your expectations. Pain enters, but suffering that's born from resistance. Think about a storm. It doesn't ask for your permission. It comes. But whether you curse the sky or prepare in silence, that's the internal world. And that's where your strength is found. Every day, life will test you with delays, betrayals, discomfort, loss. You'll want to blame something out there, but the Stoic looks within. The real battlefield is the soul, and the only thing you truly own is how you stand in the storm. Chapter 2. The body can be beaten, the soul cannot. They can chain your limbs, but they cannot chain your choices. They can silence your voice, but they cannot silence your values. The Stoics knew and lived this truth. The body can be harmed. The soul cannot. That was not just poetry. It was practice. It was survival. Epictetus was born a slave in the Roman Empire. He was beaten by his master so severely that he became crippled. But when he later taught philosophy, he said this: "My body is subject to the will of others. But my mind is my own." This wasn't wishful thinking. It was freedom. Even when his legs gave out, his principles never did. Even when he was denied autonomy, he still chose how to respond. And that's what made him free, even in chains. Centuries later, Admiral James Stockdale, shot down in Vietnam, tortured in prison camps for over 7 years, discovered Epictetus while studying philosophy at Stanford. That Stoic wisdom became his lifeline. He endured isolation, mock executions, brutal pain. But he once said, "They can hurt my body, but I will not give them my dignity." This is the essence of Stoicism. You are not your circumstances. You are not what they do to you. You are what you continue to stand for, when everything else is stripped away. They can destroy your plans, but they cannot destroy your ability to respond with integrity. They can take your possessions, but they cannot take your courage, unless you hand it to them. They can kill your body, but your character, your conscience, your convictions, those belong to you. Marcus Aurelius, while facing plagues, betrayals, and wars as emperor, wrote this to himself: "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, you are not shaped by what happens to you, but by what you allow to live in your mind. And this is what the Stoic armor is made of. Not steel or walls or escape, but a clarity so sharp it cuts through pain, a sense of self so grounded no violence can uproot it, a loyalty to your inner compass that no amount of outer chaos can shake. That doesn't mean you'll never bleed. That doesn't mean you won't cry. But when the soul is intact, even your tears carry honor. The enemy may bruise your flesh, but only you can betray your soul. And if you don't, you remain untouched. Chapter 3: Emotional Invincibility. How Stoics Trained Their Hearts. The hardest battle is not against others, it's against your own reactions. Anger, fear, jealousy, panic. These are not caused by the world. They rise from within you, from how you interpret the world. And that's why the Stoics trained not just their thoughts, they trained their hearts. Because to them, emotional mastery wasn't optional, it was armor. Marcus Aurelius, in his darkest nights, didn't ask for more control over others. He wrote to himself, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." He knew the truth. The trigger is outside, but the suffering is self-made. That's why Stoics practiced something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evil. Each morning, they imagined what could go wrong: a betrayal, a delay, a loss, a death. Not to become cynical, but to become ready. Because when life hits hard, you don't rise to the moment, you fall to the level of your training. So they rehearsed adversity. They practiced feeling pain before it arrived, so that when it did, they could stay still. Epictetus told his students, "When someone irritates you, remember, you are not disturbed by what they did, but by your own opinion that it was insulting. It's not the insult that wounds, it's your belief that you should never be insulted." And so the Stoic rewrites that belief. They don't say, "This shouldn't happen." They ask, "Now that it has, What virtue will I use to respond? That's the shift. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. You feel anger surge, not because they cut you off, but because your expectation of fairness was violated. But if you trained like a Stoic, you would expect the world to be chaotic, and yourself to remain calm within it. They call it emotional invincibility. Not that you feel nothing, but that nothing rules you. Even in grief, a Stoic grieves with awareness. Even in fear, a Stoic moves with reason. Even in pain, a Stoic speaks with compassion. Because they've prepared. They've sat in silence. They've confronted their own ego. They've questioned their automatic emotions. And they've chosen to respond intentionally, not impulsively. This is why the Stoic heart is so powerful. It doesn't avoid pain. It meets it, studies it, and decides how much power it gets. That's emotional strength, not coldness, not detachment, but discipline. To feel without being ruled. To hurt without collapsing. To witness cruelty and still choose character. This is not something you're born with. It's something you build. Every morning you sit in reflection instead of rushing. Every time you breathe before reacting. Every time you choose patience over pride. You're forging armor, one breath, one choice, one moment at a time. And the more you train, the less the world can touch you. Chapter 4. The mind is a fortress. Build it like one. Imagine your mind as a great stone fortress. Not made of walls or weapons, but of principles, of perspective, of discipline. Inside that fortress, nothing enters without your permission, and nothing leaves unless you allow it. This is how the Stoics viewed the inner life, a protected space, a stronghold where clarity lives, where peace can grow even while the outside world burns. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do." He was surrounded by political scheming, betrayal, and disease. But he protected one thing, his mind. Because he knew your thoughts are the architects of your suffering, or the engineers of your peace. So how do you build this kind of mind? Not overnight, not in theory, but brick by brick, through practice. The first brick is awareness. To notice when you've let someone else's chaos live rent-free in your head. To catch the moment your thoughts spiral because someone didn't approve of you. That's where you begin. The next brick is discipline. You choose what you focus on, what you magnify, and what you let pass like clouds in the sky. Most people open their gates too quickly. A comment online ruins their whole day. A stranger's opinion shakes their identity. But the Stoic, he keeps his gate guarded. Not with arrogance, but with intention. You don't need to react to everything. You don't need to let every emotion bloom. You are not the weather. You are the sky that holds it. And when you forget that, you leak power. That's why the Stoics trained themselves to pause, to question their automatic reactions, to ask, is this thought useful? Does this belief serve me? Am I building walls with truth or fear? Because a fortress built on fear crumbles, but a fortress built on clarity stands. Seneca once said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." In other words, We chase endlessly, as if time were infinite, yet crumble at every difficulty, as if we are powerless. But you're not powerless. You are the builder, the architect, the gatekeeper. Your fortress is yours to shape. Every time you meditate instead of scrolling, every time you walk away from an argument, instead of proving your point, every time you choose reflection over reaction, you're laying stone. Strong, unshakable, yours. And when the storm comes, as it always does, you will not be scrambling for shelter, because the shelter will be inside you. That is what the Stoics knew. They didn't seek to control the world. They sought to stabilize the world within. That's what makes the mind a fortress, not because it blocks out pain, but because it contains it and transforms it into wisdom. And when that is your home, no enemy can enter, no insult can stick, no fear can take root, because you live from the inside out, not from the outside in. Chapter 5. The Armor of Character. Virtue is untouchable. Strip away everything. Your status, your possessions, your reputation, even your health. What's left? Only one thing, and it's the only thing that matters. Your character. The Stoics believed that virtue, your moral excellence, your inner standard, is the only true good. Not pleasure, not comfort, not success, because all those things can be taken. But virtue is untouchable, unless you give it up. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet reminded himself daily, the only thing that isn't diminished by sharing is virtue. Character is the armor the world can't see, but it's the armor the soul feels. And when you wear it, you walk differently. Because even if they lie about you, even if they betray you, even if they humiliate you in front of the world, you remain you. That's the quiet power the Stoics carried. They weren't interested in how they looked. They cared how they stood. And they stood in integrity, in courage, in justice, in self-restraint. Seneca said, "We do not learn for school, but for life." And for the Stoics, the lesson was always this: be good, even when no one is watching. Especially then. It's easy to be kind when you're praised, easy to be patient when life is smooth. But the real measure of character is who you are, when it's hardest to be you. When you're disrespected, will you still speak with dignity? When you're wronged, will you still act with principle? When you're unseen, will you still do the right thing? This is what Stoic armor is forged from. Not ego, not pride, but values that cannot be stolen. They don't rust in criticism. They don't crack in pressure. They endure, because they're not tied to the external world at all. Even Socrates, offered a chance to escape death, refused. Not because he wanted to die, but because to flee would mean to betray the law he had spent his life upholding. He drank the poison, but kept his virtue intact. That's real power. Not escaping death, but choosing to die clean. In a world where everyone wants to be seen as right, the Stoic asks, am I being good? Am I being just? Am I being brave? Because how you live is more important than what happens to you while you live. That's the secret the modern world forgets. We chase outcomes. They chased excellence of soul. You don't need more praise. You don't need more validation. You need to look in the mirror and say, I stayed true. I kept my word. I didn't sell myself just to feel safe. That's what Stoic armor feels like. It's invisible, but it carries weight, and it protects the most important thing. Not your body, not your name, but your essence. And as long as you live from that place, you are never truly defeated. Chapter 6. Stoic Pain Training. Embracing discomfort. Pain is not the enemy. Fear of pain is. Most people spend their lives running from discomfort, avoiding hard conversations, numbing emotions, clinging to routines that keep them small. But the Stoics walked toward pain because they knew discomfort is the forge where strength is born. Seneca, a Roman senator and philosopher, was one of the wealthiest men of his time, but once a month he would sleep on the floor, eat stale bread, wear rough clothes, and ask himself, is this what I feared? He practiced suffering, not because he enjoyed it, but because he refused to be ruled by comfort. Because comfort, when worshipped, becomes a cage, and the more you fear discomfort, the more you can be controlled. But when you train yourself to embrace pain, to sit with it, to breathe through it, to learn from it, you become untouchable. Think of athletes. They don't get stronger by avoiding strain. They grow through tension, through fatigue, through micro breaks that lead to adaptation. The same is true for your mind. Mental resilience is not gifted. It's earned. Through every moment, you choose growth over ease. The Stoics believed in voluntary hardship. They would deny themselves pleasures not to suffer, but to sharpen the will, to remind themselves, I don't need this to be whole. You practice hunger to discover that your peace isn't tied to indulgence. You welcome silence to see what thoughts still own you. You accept rejection to test whether your worth depends on approval. And over time, what used to scare you no longer stings. What used to break you now builds you. What used to define you fades into the background. That is Stoic pain training, a sacred discipline, not to become numb, but to become strong enough to feel fully without being destroyed. There's a story of Cato the Younger, a Roman Stoic who walked barefoot through war camps, wore simple clothes, and refused bribes of luxury. His enemies couldn't buy him. His allies couldn't pressure him. Because he was already comfortable in discomfort, there was no threat left that could weaken him. Imagine being that free. Free from the fear of loss. Free from needing every moment to feel good. Free from being shaped by what happens around you, because you've already been tempered within. This doesn't mean you chase suffering. It means you stop fearing it. You stop letting it decide what you avoid, what you say, what you settle for, and instead, you look pain in the eye and say, I've met you before, and I am still here. This is not just Stoic philosophy. This is liberation. Because once you've trained with hardship, comfort becomes a gift, not an addiction. And pain becomes a teacher, not a threat. You don't break. You bend. You adapt. You rise. And each time you do, you reinforce the truth. They can wound the body, but they cannot touch a soul that has been trained by fire. Chapter 7. You are already armed. You just forgot. You don't need more strength. You already have it. Buried under years of conditioning, covered by layers of fear, drowned out by voices telling you you're too sensitive, too soft, too slow. But it's there, a quiet, steady flame that has never gone out. The Stoics didn't believe we were born broken. They believed we were born complete, but we forget. And so the work is not to become someone new, it's to remember who you were before the world taught you to forget. You were born with the ability to endure pain. You cried through your first breaths. You stumbled, got hurt, and kept walking. You learned through failure, not applause. And yet, somewhere along the way, you started thinking you had to be comfortable to feel safe. You started avoiding struggle instead of rising through it. You gave away your peace to people who never earned it. Not because you're weak, but because you forgot where your power lives. The Stoics remind us, dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow. Marcus Aurelius. It's not out there, not in books, not in teachers, not even in this video. It's in you. It always was. The discipline, the clarity, the strength to let go, the courage to stand alone, the dignity to walk away without shouting. All of it within you. But to access it, you must remove the noise. You must stop outsourcing your worth. You must stop looking at hardship as proof you're cursed, and start seeing it as proof that you're being called. You don't build Stoic armor by adding something new. You build it by refusing to abandon who you really are. When things get hard. Sopause. Look at your life. Where have you been pretending to be helpless? Where have you been waiting for someone to rescue you from discomfort? Where have you been believing the lie that you're not ready? Because you are. You've already survived things you never thought you would. You've already rebuilt from losses you didn't see coming. You've already walked through fire and walked out. Not flawless, not untouched, but awake. That's what this armor is. Not coldness, not bravado, but quiet, anchored strength that no one can see, but everyone feels when they're near you. A presence that says, I've met darkness. I've made peace with it, and I chose not to become it. That's the essence of Stoic resilience. Not avoiding life, but meeting it with your soul intact. Not shrinking in pain, but letting pain carve a deeper truth in you. So stop waiting to become strong. You already are. What you need is to remember and to live every day like your soul is untouchable, because it is. Your soul is still here. After everything, after the losses, the betrayals, the wounds they never saw, you are still standing. Maybe not as confident, maybe not as certain, but deeper, more awake, more you. This world will keep testing you. It will challenge your patience, mock your principles, push your limits. But now, you know what the Stoics knew. They can hurt your body, but not your soul. And every time you protect that truth, every time you choose silence over spite, every time you walk in virtue instead of fear, you reinforce your armor. Not the armor that hardens you, but the one that keeps you soft and strong at the same time, grounded, clear, free. So, if this message stirred something in you, if it reminded you of your inner strength, don't just move on. Live from it. And if you're on this same path, this quiet path of inner mastery, then join us. Leave a comment below. What part of this video resonated with you most? What truth are you holding on to right now? Subscribe if you want more reminders like this. Not just to survive, but to become unshakable. Share this with someone who's in pain, who needs to hear, you are not broken. You are just remembering who you really are. End quote. And never forget, your soul is your sanctuary. Guard it. Live from it. And you'll never be defeated.